Well, with a major shift in 2020 to having to work and learn from home, we saw an uptrend in the amount of time kids are spending with their eyes on a screen. We're connecting now with child and youth therapist Tania DaSilva to discuss screen time and the growing amount of time youth are spending online. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we appreciate it. So in your field, Tania, are you hearing from parents who are frustrated and maybe concerned with how much time their kid is in front of a screen?
Absolutely. That's something that's been coming up almost in every session. They're worried about how much time their kids are spending online. And they're also just becoming frustrated with trying to manage their workload as well as, their kids' school workload as well. So there's definitely a lot of concerns that have been coming up in our sessions. And something that we've really started trying to drive home is that we want to think about the quality of the screen time. So yes, we'd rather them be in school, but at least they're still getting an education, or even with their extracurriculars, at least they're still taking part in that, or tutoring or therapy. So looking for the benefit of the screen time to try and help with that anxiety.
Okay, so Tania, obviously in some cases it's going to be inevitable, things like online learning. Kids have to be in front of that screen, but you got some time, or some tips rather, for our viewers, starting with setting up a schedule. So what's the best way to go about that?
So we try to think about wellness. So we always look at, before we used to have our day scheduled and then we'd actually schedule in screen time. So now we're doing the opposite. Because so much of our time throughout the day is on a screen, we're actually getting parents to schedule in offline time. So we look at those areas of wellness. So exercise, what are we doing to get active and to have some movement? We look at food. So what are we eating? And how can we actually include our kids in those life skills by, baking or cooking or prepping or cleaning, since we're all home together anyway, as well as looking at bedtime routines and just other outlets like being creative or reading or going back to basics. I've actually been using this example a lot, but we even have some of our clients that they're starting to learn how to knit because their grandparents are living with them, or, things that as kids we never really did because we rather be on screens.
Right, exactly. So you've talked a bit about being offline, things like knitting. I've got to ask, I've heard some parents being concerned about kind of keeping up with the Joneses. They don't want to miss out. They want to make sure their kids are learning online as well. Is there a time limit we should put on it, though?
So I find for parents, they're struggling because a lot of their kids are like, well, my friend has this device or they're allowed to be on. So it's those constant comparisons. And again, that can really just take you down a spiral. So we always try to talk about it, within our family. Every family has their own way of doing things and their own rules. And this is what we're doing for our family. So not even really entertaining it, but just being like, this is what works for us. And I find a lot of kids, they get frustrated, but they start seeing that this is our rule and really going into the why, because I find a lot of the times we're like, no, this is just the way it is. There's no conversation about it. And that causes frustration. So really getting into your perspective and explaining why this rule is there. They might not love it in the beginning, but over time they'll start attaching to, okay, I can see why maybe this is being implemented.
Right. It's not just because I say so. Okay, so
Exactly.
Tania, you created a social emotional mindfulness kit. Tell me how it works.
So this kit actually comes from our in-office program. So we run social emotional programs at the office. And during the pandemic, all of our families have been asking for at-home resources. So this is something that not only parents are using at home, it's a 7-week program. So it gives them something to do offline, teaching them social skills, emotional regulation skills. It's actually something that a lot of teachers have been picking up too, to help manage their kids virtually, as well as something that they're looking forward to bringing back into the classroom, because they know that clearly emotions are going to be high when we do return.
Right. I love the visual outlay of it too. It's very attractive. Okay,
Yeah.
so another thing to really touch on as we wrap things up, online safety. It's a big topic. I'm sure you hear about it all the time. What are your tips for parents for their kids who are online and exploring that online world?
So something that we've been saying is I find parents try to essentially put out like blanket rules, and that never works because every platform is different. So we always think about maybe 2 to 3 non-negotiables. Like, you're obviously not going to meet up with strangers, things that will go across all platforms, but then taking the time to be curious, to take a front seat, play and explore those platforms with their kids and see what are our actual rules going to be for each platform individually. Because we've had kids be like, well, I'm not allowed to have the chat option, but that's the only way I can play this game with my friends. So it's really thinking about, let's look at each platform and think about what's the best rules for our family and for my expectations or their age.
Okay, great advice. Tania, thanks so much for joining us this morning. You can head to behaviormatters.com for more information. Have a great day.